This evening I'm hosting Dr. Mo, who's speaking in the Great Hall. We've got about 1,100 Canberrans who've RSVP'd to come along. What's happening in Gaza, I think, is an unfolding human catastrophe, and I think we're seeing more and more Australians realise that as a middle power we have a role to play. I'll certainly continue to advocate on behalf of the many Canberrans who care so deeply, and I think as part of that I've really tried to get people who've been there, are seeing what's happening on the ground, to be able to tell their story. Many of you would have seen the work that Dr. Mo has done since coming back from his last stint over there, and so I'll hand over to him now.
Yeah, thank you everyone for hosting me today. I'm a bit nervous. I've never done anything like this before, but I feel like we're at a very crucial moment in history with what's going on in Palestine and in Gaza, and I'm really grateful, Dave, for doing this and having the courage to not only put on a speaker that's been to Gaza, but a Palestinian as well, and somebody whose father was born in Gaza. And I think it's important now more than ever that Palestinian voices are heard and people from Gaza are heard. And I'm grateful, I'm honoured, and I'm also nervous to represent what's going on in Gaza and all these Palestinian Australians all around the country.
So, Doctor, can you tell us, are there international doctors who are being prevented from going into Gaza at the moment, and what impact is that having on the community there?
You know, even when I was there would be patients that would be sitting in tents waiting for a particular surgeon with a particular specialty to come in and operate. And sometimes we would have children dying in tents because no one could operate on them. And as you know, there's been 1,400 healthcare workers in Gaza that have been killed since the start of the war. Many have also been imprisoned and tortured currently right now. And there's a huge shortage of not just doctors, but medical supplies as well. So every day, people are dying because of lack of medical care and lack of specialist doctors.
You want to build a children's hospital in Gaza, and you want Australians to fund it. How important would it be for Australia to have a stake in the ground in Gaza?
Well, look, Australians have paid a heavy price for what's going on in Gaza. Zombie Frankham, who was killed last year in April, she was feeding children in Gaza and she died. And, I took that very personally. She's an Australian, and, she hasn't had the justice. It's not just about the children in Gaza, it's about Australians as well, feeling like we've done something to honour a fellow Australian that's fallen in Gaza. I think it's important not just for Australia as a whole, but our society has had so much tension between different communities because of what's going on in Gaza. There's not just pain in the Palestinian community, there's pain in the Muslim community, in the Jewish community, in the Lebanese community. And I think coming together over a children's hospital, because children are innocent no matter if they're Israelis or Palestinians, and we can focus on the humanity of children, we can take a lot of the tension out and the fever pitch in this country and bring it down and bring communities together. And that's what this project is about. It's not just about healing the children of Gaza, it's about healing Australia as well.
Could you tell us exactly what you would like Australian funds to go towards in Gaza?
Australian
money? What would you like?
So look, I'm not asking for money. I understand the controversy about asking for money, and we're a proud people. It's not money that we're after, because money doesn't solve problems. What we need to do is win the hearts and minds of people, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I think if we have an Australian hospital in Gaza where we get Australian doctors and they see these children and we can tell their stories, it humanises them again. And therefore, when you watch on TV screens that 100 children have died today, it permeates people's hearts. So I'm not after money from the government, I'm after winning the hearts and minds of people, and that's why I'm here today.
Dr. Mo, you've been asking to meet with the Prime Minister. Have you heard back from his office?
I've had a meeting with Penny Wong. I still haven't heard from the Prime Minister, but I think that'll come in good time. Once we're ready with everything, I want to present this to the Prime Minister, and I want him to do something that's historic, which is not just only this hospital, but it's so many other things. But we need to get that hospital, and we need to start saving these children.
So what other things? What should the government be doing? What other things are you talking about?
Well, look, I think there's many things that the government can do, but right now they're not doing enough. And words and rhetoric alone is not going to stop these children dying, and it's not going to stop the tension in this country. We need action, and That's what I want. I want to talk to them about action that they can do.
What sort of action?
I'll let them decide the kind of actions they want to take, but I'm going to push them. I don't want to put them on the spot here, and I don't want to criticize them too much, because look, this has been something that's been ongoing for 75 years. It's not going to rest on Anthony Albanese's shoulders or Penny Wong to fix everything, but we can make steps forward to change things, and that's what I want. I don't want to put all the blame on them, because it's not all their fault, and at the same time as well, I don't want people to be too hard on them. I want to give them the breathing room to make a change, and that's why we're here.
Would sanctions be part of that?
Look, I think people should follow international law. If there are war crimes going on, which Amnesty International, the ICJ, the ICC, all have ruled these things, then we should act in a governance with international law. I'm not asking for any special privileges. I'm asking for our country to follow what we have signed up to, which is international law.
You said you've met with Penny Wong. Have you met with any other MPs in Canberra, and what's the reception been like?
You know, I've met with Aunt Ali as well, who's been, you know, really supportive of this. And I've met, you know, multiple politicians all up and down the country. And I think everyone is very supportive of this children's hospital, and I think we can get it done.
We've seen the bombs drop on Gaza, we've seen the enormous damage, we've seen the debris.
Yeah.
Do you believe that starvation is being used in this?
I've seen it with my own eyes. You know, there's children that come in and they die because they've starved to death. That was happening in June last year when I was there. You know, in June last year, there was about 70 to 88 trucks a day going in. The same that's going in now. And there wasn't this level of outrage, but there was children starving to death then. You know, it's taken a long time for people to catch up to what's going on. But, you know, is starvation being used as a weapon of war? I don't think we can argue that anymore. I think we can all see what's going on in Gaza. And I think right now, action needs to be taken. Otherwise, there's going to be thousands of children that are going to die.
So if you could speak to Netanyahu, what would you say?
I don't know if I'd want to speak to Netanyahu, but, you know, look, at the end of the day, you know, I can understand the pain and the grievances of Israeli people, and I can sympathize with them, but I want also them to sympathize with us. Palestinian people have been occupied for 75 years. I was born as a refugee. I've lived my whole life as a refugee. I was born into poverty, forced poverty. My father grew up without a pair of shoes till he was 15 years old. We grew up moving from place to place, and that's because we were displaced. This never started on October the 7th. There's so many of us that live with so much trauma. But if I can put aside my trauma and my pain, then I'm asking the other side to put aside their trauma and their pain, because what we're witnessing right now is catastrophic. And we need everybody to come together and stop what's going on, stop these atrocities. Let's come together, let's work together. This can unite everybody. This is a soft spot, not just for Palestinian people, but for Muslims all around the world. If a Palestinian state was to be recognized and there'd be peace in the Middle East, I guarantee you it would have a monumental effect in the entire world. And this is what we're here for, and this is why I've given up everything to fight for this cause.
Do you understand, though, countries like Australia who are hesitant about statehood when Hamas is still part of the...
Look, I think we need to stop focusing so much on Hamas and all this kind of stuff, because look, at the end of the day, Hamas might be the government, but Hamas is also an idea of armed resistance. You can take that away. If people feel like there is a chance of living a peaceful life with dignity, people won't turn to Hamas and ideas like that. And if you recognize a Palestinian state and you give these people hope and freedom, the idea dies. But if you were to take away Hamas, there'll be another Hamas tomorrow. You know, yesterday it was the PLO that were doing armed resistance. Today it's Hamas. Tomorrow it's somebody else. What we need is hope. We need hope for these Palestinian people. That's how we stop people like Hamas. That's how we stop people like Netanyahu, by giving everybody security and safety. And that's what we're here to campaign for.
Doctor, Israel justifies strikes, military strikes against hospitals,
Yep.
saying that, you know,
Yep.
that Hamas co-ops it,
Yep.
effectively runs terrorist infrastructure
Yep.
and tunnels underneath and things like that. Did you see any evidence of that? I mean, can you talk about the Hamas
Well,
presence?
I mean, look, you know, look, I'll tell you this, you know, hospitals are a place where people come and go all the time. There's cameras everywhere because that's where the press are. We've never seen anybody there, and if I saw anybody there or any hostages, of course I would say something, because those people are suffering as well. So, you know, look, I think even the framing of the question is wrong, because what we're saying here is we're saying that it's justified to bomb a hospital. If Netanyahu was in a hospital, would it be okay for Hamas to bomb that hospital and kill everybody in the hospital? Would it be okay? It wouldn't be okay. So it doesn't matter what justification they say. You can't bomb hospitals. You can't bomb places of worship. And if they are using these tactics to hide in these places, then you need to have the moral high ground and you need to defeat them in other ways. But killing children and starving children is not the way to do it. And I think everybody understands that, and everybody can understand and see if it was the other side blowing up hospitals, then I think everyone would be outraged. So, you know, the question in itself, the framing of it, it frames it like there's a justification for what is essentially a war crime. You can't bomb hospitals regardless of whatever infrastructure is in there.
You've mentioned in the past that even just by speaking out and campaigning on this, that you are at risk going back to Gaza, you might not even be let in the future. I suppose when there's this talk of setting up a hospital, do you think you'll be able to lead that process, given the threat?
Do you know, look, I never wanted this to be about me. I don't want to be the face of this. I don't want to, you know, for me, it's about the children. It's about saving their lives. I don't care whether it's me or somebody else. I just want the killing to stop. And I want them to have dignity. And I don't care if it's me there or somebody else there. I just want them to survive. I want them to live. So, you know, for me, it doesn't matter. I just want to get the government and get everybody involved. And let's get this hospital. Let's save these children. And it doesn't matter if I'm there or not. Obviously, I'd love to be there. It's home, you know. And I have a connection with the people over there, and I have a connection with the children there that I helped, and I have a connection with the doctors and nurses there.
Doctor, I just wonder if, well, it seems there's been a bit of an international turning point, or tipping point. We've seen the UK, France and Canada talk about sanctions and describing the responses completely unwarranted or disproportionate. Do you agree? Do you think there has been an international tipping point? And why? Why now? Why this moment?
Do you know, look, you have to ask them, because we've seen images for months of international aid workers being killed, children being shot in the head with snipers, babies left in incubators to die, hospitals being bombed. These images are not new. They've been happening for 19 months. So, you know, that's a question that you have to ask other journalists of why they weren't reporting on this as strongly as they are now. Why was the framing always Palestinians die and Israelis get slaughtered? Surely, whichever way you get killed, you're being slaughtered, especially when it's at these record numbers like we've never seen before. So, look, that's not a question for me to answer. I'm a doctor. That's a question for journalists and politicians to answer, of why they didn't speak out sooner. And history will judge them.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.